called to order. It's Wednesday, 13th, and Madam Secretary, can you call the roll?
Chairman Johnson,
Present.
Vice Chairman DeSimone,
Present.
Member Bettner,
Here.
Member Connors, Member Jack
Present.
Member Rivera, Member Scholes,
Present.
Executive Director Miguel Diaz,
Present.
Legal Counsel Rick McCutcheon.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 1, the board may discuss and vote to amend its annual board meeting calendar to address the change in the party primary election date to September 9th, 2026.
Honorable members of the board, on April 20th, 2026, the governor signed into law Senate Bill 2147 and House Bill 7049, which formally changed the date of the statewide primary from Tuesday, September 8th to Wednesday, September 9th. The reason for this change was due to Labor Day falling on September 7th, the day before the primary day, and would have required the local boards to set up some of their polling locations on the holiday of Labor Day, which would incur additional costs for them. Early voting would have also have been required to be held until 4 p.m. on primary day due to the Uniform Deadlines Act. When with the enactment of these bills, those are no longer concerns. And early voting will now end at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, September 8th, and primary day will be held on Wednesday, September 9th. With your approval, the primary day board meeting will be moved to 4 p.m. on September 9th for the board to rule on any matter that requires the board's immediate attention on primary day. And I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Thanks, Miguel. Any questions for Miguel?
I move we adopt the new schedule.
Second.
Moved and seconded to amend and adopt the new board meeting calendar to address the change. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Agenda item number 2, the board may discuss and vote on proposed legislation presented by the Office of the Secretary of State, along with amendments proposed by the Rhode Island Voting Access Coalition and the Campaign Legal Center for submission to the General Assembly for the 2026 legislative session. The proposed legislation and proposed amendments are attached to the agenda. And I know we had lengthy and productive discussion last week on this agenda item, and we did have a motion, but going to open it back up for questions or comments. And I'm going to start with Chairwoman Bettenker since she was not
Hi.
with
Thank
us
you.
last week.
Yes, thank you. No, and I appreciate it. And I before it came, I was able to watch some of the meetings, so I'm glad that it's streamed. I think my question was going to be, I appreciated a lot of the questions that were clarified by both Secretary of State and Kamikaze. I think my question right now is both the bill has been heard at both chambers at this point. So in the legislative process, we are waiting, right? We're maybe 5-6 weeks away from it ending. So with our vote today to approve it or whatever we would like to do, I guess my question to not just the executive director but to the rest of the board is: Are we asked if we approve it or oppose it or whatever we do? I guess it would be one of the two. Is this the goal to say we approve it and we're sending a specific letter to the chair people for those for the committees? I think this is judiciary for both, right? Yes.
I think that's
Perfect.
what we've
Yeah.
done in the
Yeah.
past.
And so I'm just state government. Thank you. Whatever. Yes. So is that I'm asking, is that sort of like would be the next step?
Yes, by default, we would send a letter for any legislation that the board supported.
Mhm.
At the last meeting, I think it was just the board was trying to find a mechanism in order to incorporate some or all of the recommended amendments
Yep.
that are on the agenda today in the packet that you have in front of you. Because we do have the two bills, there is no sub-A introduced for either.
Correct.
As of yet, I don't know if from the Secretary's office, from the Department of State, Rob Rock, Kathy Placentia could provide additional information about whether a subway will be introduced.
Mhm.
But I think it's trying to figure out how in the motion, or if there's more than
Yeah.
one motion required, to support the original bill
Mhm.
and the additional amendments in a sub-A if they do pass, or if the board is in agreement with all of the amendments because there are about 12, I believe, on that list in that
Yeah.
table. So, so once the board, the staff has a direction on the board's motion and the vote, then we can craft the letter accordingly.
Got it. Yeah, that makes more sense. Great.
Yes, sir.
So none of these amendments have been reduced to writing in the legislature in a sub A. Is that correct, or? And I guess, John, I'm looking at you because I think you probably have the most recent information, but I mean, Rob, obviously, the information you have as well.
Yeah, thank you, John Marion from Common Cause Rhode Island. Yeah, there's no official sub-A yet, but we've shared the amendments with the sponsors and shared it with the leadership, and the secretary has indicated his support to the sponsors and the leadership.
So, and would you be supporting the bill without these amendments?
I mean, as I said last time, like, we expect we'll sit down at some point and hear which ones they think they're amenable to. Some of them we think are very necessary amendments, like the one moving the language around the other protected, and some are probably not as necessary. But, we haven't been asked to, which ones we feel are necessary yet by them.
Thanks.
You good?
Oh,
I'm looking at Rand.
sorry, I do have a question about one of the amendments. I didn't have a chance to really digest them before the last meeting. So Amendment 3, which refers to, it talks about the extension of just talking about some of the circumstances, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the circumstances that may be considered when seeing if there's a violation of this section. I just want to make sure I understand that. And one of them we're adding or suggesting that is being added is a lack of responsiveness by elected officials to the particular needs of the members of a relevant protected class or community of members of the relevant protected class. I guess it's not a question. This is just me. I think that's, am I understanding that correctly? That's Ms. Marion, maybe you can answer. Is that just one of the circumstances that we would consider as a potential violation of this section?
Yeah, so as it says at the top, it's a totality of the circumstances test. So there are a bunch of things in the bill. These three weren't included, but these are from model language. The first two are things that are part of the federal VRA. This one is something that the voting rights groups have come up with and has been in several state VRAs that have passed. But yeah, the judge would look at the totality of the circumstances, in evaluating all of these so-called guidelines or factors, to make a conclusion of whether or not there was, a violation of
Okay,
this.
thank you. I just want to make sure I
Answer?
understood that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the answer. I don't have any other particular questions about the amendments, but just for the record, I know we don't have a motion on that, but my concerns still stand from the last meeting, and I'll just briefly summarize those. One, I think there's a lot of subjectivity in this. That last example that we just discussed is one I want to return to in a second, but I think that's a good example. We don't know who's going to be deciding this, what fact. I mean, obviously they have certain factors in front of them, but it's very subjective and not objective. I think this opens up the legal exposure to the different political subdivisions, whether that be a city, town, or the state. I think one of the interesting things, and I think, Ms. Marion, you may have said this the last time, if I look at my notes, that this kind of shifts us from a situation where parties have to prove intent to assuming an intent. Am I correct in saying that?
So since 1982, under the Federal Voting Rights Act, we've had a disparate impact test, right? So until 2 weeks ago, you didn't have to prove intent under the Federal Voting Rights Act since 1982. This would basically take us to what the Federal Voting Rights Act was before 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
which is that disparate impact. You wouldn't have to prove that the change was made with racist intent. You would just have to prove that it had a racially disparate impact on the protected class, which is essentially communities of color.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
welcome.
That answers my question. Just in reference to that, I feel like it's swinging the pendulum. Maybe prove intent is too high of a bar, but I think now we're going all the way the other way. We're assuming intent without giving someone the ability to, to answer any allegations that may be against them, which is a concern for me. And then just my last point, again, and I'm trying to be brief, is just on this question I asked about the lack of responsiveness of elected officials to particular needs of a members of a protected class or community. I actually think that by drawing the lines to keep a certain protected class together, it actually promotes just exactly that. And the reason I say that is because you have either party, whether, the lines might favor a protected class, might put a protected class together. Theoretically, that historically, if we look at elections, that protected class may support one side or the other. That actually allows the side that's getting the support to essentially take them for granted, and the side that's not going to get the support to completely write them off. It actually puts them in a situation where elected officials will be able to and should, for their own political necessity, will ignore the needs of a particular class. So I think it's actually promoting exactly what it's trying to prevent. So for these reasons and the ones I mentioned last week, I don't intend to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? I think just to remind folks, the motion in front of us last week was to support with or without amendments, given this time in the process and not knowing how we will, where it will land. And so at this time, I'll open it up for any further comments or if anyone wishes to make a motion.
I just, by way of commentary, I agree with Commissioner Giacobone wholeheartedly on the issues. There are a lot of subjective criteria, and then in the action by the court must take action. So you're giving a judge not just authority, but you're actually mandating action on something that is somewhat subjective, at least in my reading of the legislation proposed. I just don't think that I don't think it's going to accomplish the purpose that it's presented for. Now, the second part of it is procedurally. I don't know how we vote on a piece of legislation and say we're supporting the legislation and we're supporting the amendments to the legislation, because I think the amendments are significant. So I would also have a problem voting in that manner to say, well, okay, we support the legislation and we support the amendments. I think we support it one way or the other. Again, that would be my feeling, if we're going to support. As from my standpoint, I'm not going to support either as written. But I just think it's a bit of a problem to say, okay, we're going to give you carte blanche on this legislation, and whatever amendments go forward, we're going to be okay with it. And we're okay with it if there are no amendments. When we're already told that a couple of the amendments are, I won't say mandatory, but are extremely significant, at least in getting the act to do what it purports to do. So those would be my comments on the bill.
Well, just as a point of clarification, really, there would be 4 different possibilities, right? There could be either the original version, second of which would be the amended version, which would have all of the proposed amendments. The third version would be a subset of all of the proposed amendments. So really, it seems to me that the board has enough information before it where it can address those scenarios, but that's up to the board. The fourth, of course, would be if there are additional amendments that you're not even aware of. That would be
You mean
problematic.
for like outside parties aside from
Right.
what's here.
If there was some other modification proposed
Like
that
that
you
the
haven't even
legislature
seen,
made.
obviously your
Mhm.
vote could not anticipate that or be, include that. So, but the first three could by one or a variety of motions and votes address those, which is either as is, as possibly in its entirety with all of the proposed by the CLC and Common Cause, or any subset of the proposed amendments from the CLC. You may not be comfortable with any of those with the first, I don't know, but those seem to be the three options you would have where you could take a vote.
I wasn't suggesting that we couldn't. I was just suggesting that it doesn't seem to be the normal way in which we would approve or hold on, support on legislation. Normally, we have the final copy of the legislation. We know exactly what we're supporting. We're not postulating on what amendments we would support or wouldn't support. So that's, again, just as a procedural matter, I would have an issue with that, but I'm only one vote on the board.
And if I can add, so there have been times within the legislative committee and that we've brought to the board that we have said we will support this legislation with, if these changes are made, and we ask the executive director to say, make sure that when you're saying this, we are asking for these changes. So I wouldn't say that we've never supported a bill like this and that we've never done something like this. I think I guess, I know I didn't miss the very long conversation last time, but I am concerned that the Board of Elections would not support or possibly oppose a bill like this. I remember in 2020 when this board actually also opposed the Rhode Island, like the Voting Act, right? That made like early voting happen. And then the year later, finally the board sort of came around. That's really tough. Like this is a body that it's really concerning. But I appreciate a lot of the in sort of in to Commissioner Giacoboni, the lack of responsiveness. That was really interesting what you said about the subjectivity part. But I guess I'm just concerned if we just fully are not going to be supportive of this piece of legislation, especially with what we've been seeing around the country. But again, I do think that there is a place that we can be supportive of this with amendments or without amendments. But at least, yeah. So I just would be really concerned if that's not going to be the case.
Thank you.
Ray, are you suggesting that we have an individual vote on each of the 10 amendments?
I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting that you would probably have 2 or 3 separate votes, as is. And then secondly, with the assumption that all of the amendments are adopted into one sub A, that motion. And then a third one would be if the board would be willing to support it, if only one or more of the proposed modifications from this anticipated sub A were adopted. You may find that some are necessary and you wouldn't adopt it or support it unless those particular ones are added in. But, so I wasn't saying you had to have a separate motion on each. I suppose that is another way to approach it.
Yeah, wouldn't it be easier to just have a vote on each amendment?
Would they have to be 3 separate though? Or
Would
would
they-
you suggest that
Would they have to be separate in what way? I'm
the
sorry.
3 scenarios that you outlined?
Well, just from the discussion we're having, it makes it clear to me that I wouldn't say that we're approaching this with any kind of unanimity. So I think separate motions are going to be needed.
So are you suggesting then that if there's one amendment that we support,
Mm.
that the base of the bill is going to be a non-support?
That if that amendment is not in the bill, you could
Well,
have
it's
a
not-
motion.
It's not in the bill now. See, that's my problem. Right now, there are 2 bills in the legislature
Mhm.
as they sit here.
And
with
these are
no
just amendments.
And I would imagine we need to decide whether or not we support this bill as it sits.
Right.
If we're going to say we only support it as amended, then we don't support the initial draft. And I think
That's a possibility.
I don't think it's a possibility. I think if we support one amendment,
Mhm.
then our only other position can be, and we say one amendment has to be put before the assembly,
Mhm.
right? And we'll support it with that amendment, as the commissioner referenced, as we have in the past.
I think what you're saying, I think what you're saying is that only if, to the
Correct.
exclusion of what exists with the current version, of
Well,
course,
I'm-
you're right.
I'm just going off what the commissioner suggested we've done in the past.
Mhm.
We've said, we'll support this
If.
legislation
Mhm.
if you provide this amendment.
But
So-
what she
I
did
don't
was
think-
to provide you with, she provided you with an example of how you could take a vote that is conditioned upon something occurring or not occurring. It could be either a specific amendment, it
Or
could
a
be,
group of
it could be a group of them, it could just be this sub A
I
that is being
understand that.
proposed. You could do it that way as well.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, if we're supporting a sub A with even one amendment in it, how are we then where are we on the initial?
You
bill?
could also say that legislation as proposed without any amendments is sufficient to gain the support of the board. That's a perfectly
Mhm.
appropriate motion, or either way. And then you could say,
Well,
but
I
you could
think-
enhance
I think
it.
it's a little disingenuous, though, for this board to say that item number 3, for example, on the amended list, that's an important amendment, and that's an amendment, obviously, that Common Cause has said is an important amendment. And that's a very important amendment, and we'll support the bill if it has that amendment in it.
That's
Oh, and
different.
and oh, by the
That's,
way,
that is a different, that is a
and
different
oh, by the
approach.
way,
Yeah.
we'll support the bill even if it doesn't have that amendment in it.
Well, you could do that. You could say that Amendment 3 is helpful. It might provide further guidance, but it is not a condition precedent to your,
No,
Your
I,
support.
I understand that, Ray, and I'm not suggesting that we couldn't do that.
Mhm.
yeah.
I'm saying that I think it's disingenuous of this board to say, we need these amendments, but if you don't pass the amendments, we're still okay with the legislation. I just
Yeah, but-
don't think I think it's incongruous, frankly.
And respectfully, and respect your opinion, I think as Commissioner Bettenker said, I think putting something forward is important for me, for my vote, for, principle wise. So definitely appreciate everything, that we've heard, but I would not consider my vote disingenuous one way or the
I'm
other.
not-
So,
I'm not
no, I know
suggesting
you're not.
that
I know
we're-
you're not.
We're being individually
No.
disingenuous. I'm just
I
saying
know.
from a logical
Mhm.
standpoint, if
Mhm.
you support something as amended,
Mhm.
it means it's being amended for a reason. So that we should just take a vote on the base bill then. And however it falls. If we're happy with the bill as it sits, I believe that's the only vote we need. And if it gets amended, it gets amended.
Okay.
point.
So are you saying, so you would rather vote just on the bill itself as it stands?
I'm just making a suggestion.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't matter to me one way or the other
Got it.
from that standpoint. I think the issues are the same for me.
Got it.
I just don't want the board to be in a situation where we have to write a letter saying we're going to
Mhm.
support a bill
But,
if it has an amendment in it, but we're also going to support it if it doesn't have an amendment in it. I mean, then just support the bill.
Mhm.
I just think, I don't want us to look like, well, we just gave everybody carte blanche on the bill.
Mhm.
Interesting.
That's all from our standpoint, because we haven't really done that in the past, unless we've enumerated what we wanted
the
the amendments
specific
to be.
things,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm,
There could be any number of amendments in a sub-A that we're not going to see, quite
Mhm.
frankly.
mhm.
I
Fair.
get that.
Yes.
Just for procedural standpoint, maybe I can make a suggestion. Maybe we should just vote on the bill as it's presented now
Mhm.
and then consider the amendments after, because I don't know what the feeling of the board's going to be on the core bill itself. But I think that at least
I like
that says something.
Yeah.
And I just want to add, just as a follow-up to Commissioner Bettenker's comments, last week, one of the things that I said was that there are sections of this bill that I could support, areas of it that I could support. I just can't support it as it is now.
Mhm.
I think one of the defining things for the benefit, the question, you have to ask ourselves a question, is discriminating on the basis of a core characteristic of a protected class in regards to voting good or bad?
Wait, can you say that again?
Is discriminating
Mhm.
Based on the core characteristic of a protected class with regards to voting rights, good or bad? That's a rhetorical question, although
Got it.
Ollie will answer it. I think at its core, it's bad. I think that's what we're saying here.
Mhm.
But that's not what this bill says.
Correct.
This bill says it's bad if it's done for one reason or it results in certain things. It's good if it results in other things.
Mhm.
And there's some unnamed faceless person, I assume a judge, that's going to make that decision based on these very wide, very subjective characteristics. I think that I agree that this board has done a lot. I wasn't on 2020, but this board has done a lot since then, at least since we've been here. I've been here, my experience, to do things to support everybody's voter rights, regardless of their class, protected class or not.
Mhm.
And we've opened it up to give people a lot of options to be able to participate in the process. So I don't think that anyone, and I know you're not saying that, but I just want to reiterate for the sake of the record that I don't think anyone's saying that is a bad thing. That's a good thing. We want people to vote.
Yeah.
But there could be, some of us may just have different viewpoints about what putting this in place may
Would do.
result in.
Mhm.
And I don't think what I'm suggesting is that far-fetched. You may believe that is
Mhm.
far-fetched, but I don't happen to believe that.
Mhm.
Because again, I think if you take a core characteristic of a protected class and make a decision about their voting rights based on that,
Mhm.
it's either good or bad. It's not good or bad depending on the outcome that someone later is going to decide.
Mhm.
That's the way I feel about it, so. I
So you're
appreciate
basically
it.
saying, as if I understand it, that it always has to be race neutral. Under all circumstances, whatever action is taken by the state has to be race
Whatever the
neutral.
characteristic is, and characteristics is certainly one of race is one of the characteristics defined in this bill, but there's others. But yes, I think it needs to be we're all in this together. Voters are voters. It shouldn't matter what their race, religion, they should
Yeah,
have
but it
full
does.
access to it. And that, and again, I think there's other characteristics. This is a very comprehensive bill, and I'd be happy to have a glass of wine or beer or whatever, which was with Commissioner Banker, and discuss and go through line by line, which
Yeah.
we're not going to do here, but I think that there's a lot of unintended consequences that could result from this.
Thank you.
Well, just as a comment, that's certainly going to be discussed at the General Assembly, because this is making a policy statement on this bill. I mean, it's an important piece of legislation to address some problems. And I think the General Assembly is just going to look to the board as to whether or not our input into this. These proposed amendments, they're not written in stone. Who knows what other additional amendments are going to be presented by other groups, other parties, what the General Assembly is going to do with these amendments. We just don't know. All we know is that the General Assembly is looking to us to say, what is our view on this General Assembly, on this proposed legislation, and our view on these amendments. So I think we should take a vote on whether or not we support the bill and whether or not we support each of these amendments. We can take one by one. And that will be the consensus that Executive Director will put into a letter and address it to the General Assembly. They can take what our views into consideration, but it's not going to be the ultimate decision because they're going to have to vote on it themselves.
Great. So I will make a motion. Can I make a motion to support the piece of the legislation in front of us as the Rhode Island Voting Rights Act?
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further last discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You know.
I mean, no.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear you say no.
Didn't
I
have
mean,
to
no,
bet,
Yes,
no.
sir, no.
for the
Just-
reasons that.
Yeah, I knew
Commissioner
that,
and I
but
discussed, I'm-
yes, for the record, just making sure. And with a vote of 3-1 in favor, the motion passes.
2-2, 2-2,
Thank you.
3-2. You got 3-2.
Oh, did I not say that?
No, yeah, 3-2.
3-2. What did I say?
3-1.
Oh, 3-2.
Sorry,
There were
it's
quiet-
for
Might
fun.
be in single
Motion
vote.
passes.
there were quiet no's. what
That's
it
right,
is.
that's right, quiet nose.
Yes.
Do we have any other motions?
I will make a motion to support the proposed amendments by the Secretary of State and the advocacy organizations in front of us.
It's all 10 amendments, right? Correct?
Yes.
Yes. Second,
Motion and a second to approve the legislation with the amendments added into it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
3-2, motion passes. Anyone else?
That's it, right?
That's it.
Is that, oh, yes. I'll move to adjourn.
You want to say something, Lee? Oh, yeah, okay. You're gonna say something. Motion to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Assuming no one is opposed. So we are adjourned at 4:37 PM.